So, my little liver dumplings, it's time to set off on another BBC mini break. This time aboard the Nouvelle Première, France's gastronomic express. Pity I forgot my train spotter's guide. Anyway, it takes the diplomats and politicians between Paris and Strasbourg in supreme luxury. And it offers them a standard of cooking, wine and service which is equal to any starred restaurant in France. Of course, I know it's not a patch on the British Rail cheese toasty, but at least they're really trying.
Un pouilly Vincel, en tout cas, voilà.
Et
il peut choisir rouge, Simon, comme ça, voilà. Merci. Ah, this is the life, lads.
The train journeys east through splendid countryside to the vineyards of Champagne and through the battlefields of 2 world wars. But don't let's be glum. More interesting is the way of preparing food. Take this fish choucroute, created by Joël Robuchon. What they do is prepare these meals freshly every morning at a central kitchen at the station in Paris, vacuum pack and chill them, and then the chefs simply have to steam them and serve them. And believe me, the quality is superb and beautifully fresh. Of course, they charge like wounded buffaloes, which might have something to do with why the service packed up earlier this year. A great shame. Journeys end, and the foothills of the Voges mountains are thickly clad with vines. Here in Alsace, the Riesling and Muscat grapes reign supreme. This is the town of Colmar. And if you detect a Teutonic influence in the architecture, well, that's because we're just a few miles from the German border. Very interesting. But what I really like is this wonderful wrought ironwork celebrating the charcuterie. You know, the pâtés, sausages, terrines and foie gras, for which Alsace is justifiably famous. Now then, what has this building and the Statue of Liberty got in common? The answer is this man, who designed both, the Maison des Têtes, the House of Heads, which I shall be cooking in shortly, and the aforementioned statue. It's refreshing to see him clutching a glass and a bottle, rather than a hammer and chisel, a man right after my own heart. This is my new chum, Mark. Say hello, Mark. Right, I'm going to make some liver dumplings, quenelle de foie, they're called here. And Clive, if you have a spin round the ingredients, I must explain this quite carefully, because it's simple and liable to go catastrophically wrong. This is minced raw pig's liver, into which I've added some fried onion and bacon, chopped up and minced all together. Look, it's a nasty, gungy puree there, and I've put salt and pepper into it. Moving over a bit, we've got semolina flour there. Here, a bit more to your left or right, whatever it's called, a couple of beaten eggs. Over here, some finely fried chopped shallots, some nutmeg for grating in, and some finely chopped parsley, and breadcrumbs soaked in milk. Now, up to me again, please, dear Clive, because this is why I have to explain myself out of trouble. All you do is mold those into little tiny shapes and steam them or boil them in barely simmering water, and they become delicious. But what will probably happen when I mix it all together and put them in, they'll explode and sort of make the whole thing look rather like one of those water processing works you see by the sides of motorways. Anyway, let's have a go. So it's hot. What I have to do is put my breadcrumbs in, like so, my eggs in, and I have no confidence in this dish at all, I can tell you that. I just don't believe it's going to work. Little semolina goes in, which I mix in. Semolina flour, this is. I hope that won't be fiddling around. Here, a little bit of the onion and the parsley. Now, we grate a bit of nutmeg in. Noix de muscade. Like that. That water's probably boiling too fast behind me. Now, this is where it all, I'm sure, is going to turn to rat. because I would have thought that this needed to be a much drier, firmer mixture. But when I was discussing this with Mark, the chef here in the Maison des Têtes, he assured me that none of that was a problem. So I'll just have a quick swig, if you don't mind, because I'm on the wagon, basically speaking, but it's a fairly nerve-wracking occasion. And now we're going to see what kind of a fool I can possibly make of myself by putting this liquid mixture into here. And it's bound just to separate into a whole... Oh, no, it's not. Look. It is... Hey, it's working. This is incredible. Now, how do I get the damn thing off the spoon? That's what I'm not so sure about. Marc, où est le chef? Chef? Je suis dans la merde. I'm hoping the chef's going to come and help me because I'm in real trouble here. Qu'est-ce que je fais maintenant?
Attends. Est-ce que tu as assaisonné là?
Oui, oui, c'est tout assaisonné. Il y a du sel, poivre et tout. This is just bad luck that I've screwed this up, but happily help is on at hand. Now watch very carefully now. Ah, you just tip them onto the...
You must all the time to...
Wash the spoon.
Yes. And then you do it like this.
I see.
All right.
Yes. So it's really rather like poaching eggs, in fact. It's terribly simple. It's really simple. All you need is 20 years of experience in a real French kitchen, and you just whack it out like that. Pretty good, eh? Now, the most important thing is to make the little sauce to go with my dumplings, my little liver dumplings, my dears, which we've made between us. I taught him how to do it earlier on. Come down close to the pot, please, and some finely sliced shallots, chopped shallots, which we now déglace with a little bit of white wine from Alsace, put it onto maximum heat, and let that... Il faut laisser réduire ça.
Oui, laissez réduire maintenant.
Now we leave that to reduce, which will take a second or two. In the meantime, I will begin... Il doit être cuit maintenant. Oui. I shall begin to prepare these beautiful little liver dumplings onto the plate. Tip them up that way, they look neater. And I'm going to make these look quite superb. That's reducing away nicely. These have been in this simmering water, by the way, for 12 minutes, which is very, very good. 12, 15 minutes. So we do that. Now, it's no good me saying that that's ready, because it isn't. It's not ready till there's almost no liquid left. Il faut être presque sec, n'est-ce pas?
Presque à sec. Hein. Là, c'est presque bon, vous voyez. Là, ça commence par lier avec l'oignon. Maintenant, on peut y mettre demi-glace.
Ah bon, très bien. It's very good to have somebody who really knows what he's talking about on hand. Voilà. This is what we call a demi-glace. It's a stock pot which has been reduced slowly, flavoured and thickened with creams. If you want to make a demi-glace, look it up in one of the cookery books. Right, this is sufficiently reduced. Come in, Clive, have a good look. See how rich and thick it's got now. But with all these sauces, it's always a good thing. This is not nouvelle cuisine, I can assure you. This is ancien cuisine. Enrich that with a little knob of unsalted butter. That will make the sauce, very shiny and a lot more gentle.
Right.
Merci. So you get
Maintenant, il faut le retirer un peu.
Faut le retirer un peu, slowly. Now, just very gently to beat in the butter. OK, comme ça?
OK, c'est bon.
C'est bon pour l'assaisonnement?
Oui, maintenant, ça se donne.
Ouais.
Et après, une petite touche de vin blanc encore pour ramener un peu de...
Quoi, maintenant, là-dedans?
Oui, juste un peu.
Bon.
Comme ça.
We've got to add just a little tiny weeny... Like that. Just to make the flavour come right through, OK? Just to finish off the fare.
Okay.
Yes, and it does, makes a big difference.
Tiens, t'as les spoons?
Spoon. Il faut les napper.
Oui, napper. Tac, bien joli. Voilà, c'est bon. Voilà, un peu de tomate au milieu, si vous voulez.
And here we have a little bit of carefully prepared tomato, very finely chopped chives.
That's a good dish with potatoes.
Fried or boiled potatoes?
Boiled.
Boiled. And I think that's a bit too
That's
much
too
salad,
much.
isn't it? There we are.
Voilà.
Okay, Clive, I'm going to get myself a little round of applause for this, if you don't mind. Sorry. There we are. As you can see, I made it all on my own with no outside help or interference in any shape or form. It's absolutely brilliant, and to prove it, I'm prepared to eat it in front of you, except that that's a little hot. Now I'll use that one. They are light and delicious. They're actually not unrelated to the Great British Faggot, but they're a much finer, more delicate version of them. Come on,
C'est
come
bon?
on, tu trouves.
Attends, je vais goûter. Très bien, Floyd. C'est presque un Alsacien.
I'm nearly an Alsatian. There's an answer to that. Here we go again with my musical chum Amadeus, and here's one of the production assistants, looking very anxious. Colmar, despite being invaded 3 times since the Franco-Prussian War, is a resilient place, and its citizens exude a genuine joie de vivre, which only those who've experienced utter hell show. And they make brilliant cakes, which they arrange on shelves in much the same way as a Bond Street jeweller displays his wares. Of course, what makes the cakes of Alsace so good, although a Hungarian countess once told me the only place to enjoy cakes is in Vienna, she was a bit of a snob of course, is the painstaking care of small family businesses who employ a couple of young apprentices who are very proud to learn and maintain the fine tradition of master cake making. And they do make exceedingly good cakes, and croissants of course. They're also brilliant at making sausages, and in a better world we'd devote a whole series to this master sausage maker, but it's a cruel world, and until now the sausage maker was one of gastronomy's unsung heroes.
Saucisson, si bon, full of flavors to me, very flavors to me, such a succulent treat, it's a tasty treat, it's stuffed and fit to burn, bursting with every flavor. Saucisson, si bon, and the French are the best, when it comes to the test, when they take the test. Saucisson, si bon, 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 saucisson. Si bon. Saucisson, si bon.
This is what happens when you let your emotions rule your mind. I'm a fool to myself, you know. My relationship with the director is based on trust and understanding. I don't trust him, and he doesn't understand me. He knows I hate flying, I have got no head for heights, but somehow he persuaded me to take a short flight, he said, just for a good few shots. How could I possibly refuse? And anyway, the crew was suggesting I was a bit yellow. I protested, I prayed for fog, but to no avail. Bottom line here is that I do not like being in this balloon. I mean, I know it looks great on television. I know it looks lovely, sunshiny day, alpine scenery, drifting over the Voges mountains, here in Alsace, on our way to lunch, but we're 3,000 feet and nothing on the clock but the maker's name. Happily, I've got a decent glass here to cheer things up. And when we do land, I'm going to cook the most fabulous pheasant in cabbage and show you how they make the superb cheese, which was in fact invented here many centuries ago by Irish monks in Munster, where they founded a monastery. But in the meantime, this is Keith Floyd above the Voges mountains, absolutely terrified for Floyd on France. He said it was simply a question of mind over matter. He didn't mind and I didn't matter. But things went wrong, we ran out of gas and, you've got it, we crash landed in the road. Ha ha ha. André Graff, my mad pilot, managed to save a little gas, of course, for what he called essential requirements.
It is Alsatian champagne called the Crémant d'Alsace. And of course it's the old tradition since 1783 when the balloon was invented in France. So since this year ever when there is a new flight, people who fly the first time in balloon, they have to drink champagne.
Supposing you didn't save the gas you used to cool down the champagne to put in the balloon.
Yeah, sure. We should have had the gas we used. No. Okay.
Brilliant.
So we go. And then there is another tradition, but I guess we just have to take care of the technical point of view. But this is the other tradition.
My rendezvous was a remote farmhouse in the Munster Valley where they survived purely on the sale of their cheeses. Of course, the rest of the journey was made on foot, while André entertained me with witty stories of daring do, drawn from a vast experience, all of 6 hours, of balloon flying. It turned out that André was a distant relation to another of the valley's famous sons, Dr. Albert Schweitzer, who once said, "You'd never get me up in a balloon, John." What I'm doing today is cooking a very simple Alsatian dish of pheasant rolled in cabbage and stewed in white wine. Riesling, in fact, the wine from this area. A very thing that's important to mention about French provincial cooking, the reason it tastes so good all the time is that they use the ingredients from their own area. And Clive, if you'd like to spin round these ingredients, and here's a pheasant that was shot locally, for example. Here is home-cured salt and smoked bacon from this very farm, carrots from the garden, juniper berries from Sainsbury's, bay leaves from the garden as well and dried, garlic from here, and properly homemade sausages. And the reason the dish tastes good, sorry to slur my words, is they use the Riesling wine. I mean, they wouldn't go and buy a jug of Moroccan wine to make their dish in this part of the world, like we probably have to do in England. You can still make it that way if you want to. Anyway, I've got to do is wrap up the rest of these little leaves around the pheasant. I'm muttering my words a bit, but sometimes that happens and you have to put up with it, because we've been up very early this morning getting shots and making cheese and all that sort of stuff. Then what I have to do is fry off all my little bits of ingredients in the frying pan and mix it all up together. Now, you've seen that so many times before. You've seen those really interesting shots of bubbling frying pans, haven't you? Why don't you go, as I said earlier, have a look at the cheese making, and I'll join you a bit later, okay?
For manufacturing a Munster cheese, you'll need these ingredients, please. 1 vat of milk or rather fresh white curd, and all of this must be stirred. And then upon a fire of wood, you have to warm it up real good. Until it gets all nice and heated. See that the mixture's carefully treated. Now at the rennet make it all congeal. You must feel a little ill. Fish out the lumpfish now are nice and thick. Then you must chop them quick, or you'll be far too sick.
That was very witty. Anyway, the set cheeses are salted, stored, and turned daily for up to 3 weeks. It's a strong, tangy cheese with a pungent smell, but it's quite delicious. There we are, that's 4 or 5 minutes in the pan there. They're just nicely golden, slightly browning, and they're ready to go into the main pot. Incidentally, this is a dish that you don't have to just use pheasant with. You could use old grouse, old pigeons, all kinds of game birds. Birds always, chickens, pheasants, quail, but as long as they're the old and tough ones, it's the way of using up the old toughy ones, as I say, not succulent tender ones that you would use for roasting. Now, the other thing is, of course, it owes a lot to Alsatian cooking, and Alsatians owe a lot to me, because the reason I'm having this very substantial dish today is because after that horrific crash, and my ex-friend, the balloon pilot, is coming to lunch, we need something to build ourselves up. Because I didn't enjoy that experience at all. Fishing boats and things were okay, helicopters are okay, but that blasted balloon really made me a bit miserable. Clive, I'm going to have to bring this over to you, if you don't mind, to show you what I've got in there now. Just the packets of pheasant wrapped in cabbage on top of their little bed of vegetables and bacon, okay? The bay leaf goes in, a couple of juniper berries plop in like that, and then you can't use, I'm very sorry about this, English sausage manufacturers, you can't use those ones you sell with E numbers in the supermarkets for this dish. You've got to find somebody who makes a proper sausage, okay? Just give those a slight prick. Then, bearing in the old-minded principle that you should never cook with wine that you can't drink. I mean, if the wine is not good enough to drink, which this most certainly is, you mustn't cook with it. So I just pour myself one last little slurp, and then, because it is only the balloon pilot after all, The way he was interfering with that gas yesterday was very worrying. There we are. That goes in like that. The lid goes on to the top. Seen the lid? I like lids. But this is the thing we do very carefully, because the next time you see this dish, it will be cooked, and the director will say, "Did we see the oven properly?" Ça fait un peu de temps pour moi de lui servir, parce que il faut le jus. I didn't realise so many people were coming to lunch. I panicked when I saw these big farmers with enormous appetites coming in from the fields. It was a bit much to ask one pheasant, not that I did, to feed 6 people. So remember, one pheasant is fine for 2 or 3. And the mad balloonist and I had to make do with some cream cheese.
It is cheese. It is first of all cheese. But this cheese is not ripe at all, and it is still a sweet cheese. So it is served with some cream. Mm-hmm. And so there is the what we call in France the small milk. I mean, it's what drops from
the whey, I think we call that.
And so you take the kirsch,
yes,
and you pour it on the cheese here. And this is very good. I mean, you have truffe du Périgord, or you have goose liver, or champagne, something very well known from France. But this one should be very well known. It is very good.
Would you have a little sugar with it?
You take some sugar with it. I guess there's already some on it, but it is very, very, very fine. So all the gastronomy in the farms was originally so that people could stay all the summer along on the mountain, and they didn't need anything. They just took some sugar with them.
You had desires to invent cheese yourself, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I had. This was a strange story. It was not a good story, because I tried to make a mixing with Roquefort. Yeah, this is the cheese from west-south France, and with Munster cheese. And so I took some bread, because we have to take some moldy bread, yeah, and I knew there was moldy bread in the Roquefort, so that it got blue. And I put some moldy bread in one cheese. And so I put it in the cellar with the other hundreds of cheese. And
you had asked the farmer permission to make this blue cheese,
I
of course.
had asked, but he didn't really realize, I think. But I did it, and I went to the cellar every 2 days to wish up the cheese. Yes, so you have to take the cheese, and with salt and water you wish up the cheese, of course, so that the mushrooms, you know that it is all ripened up by mushrooms, and these mushrooms have to develop correctly. And so one day I went to the cellar and I found my cheese completely blue, and I was glad, because it was like a Roquefort. But when I looked after the other cheese, all were blue. All the other cheese were blue. And so this was really a really big story in this farm, because I had to stay days and days into the cellar, and I had to take off all the blue little places, yeah, on the cheese, and there were hundreds of cheese.
Mad as a hatter. There are more out than in, you know. Anyway, meanwhile, back at the Maison des Têtes, they're busily and cheerfully preparing the great regional speciality, choucroute. Take it away, boys. You all know what choucroute is, of course, but just to remind you, it's fermented cabbage boiled and then heaped with slices of cooked, smoked ham, bacon, pork, sausages, liver dumplings and boiled potatoes. It doesn't half build you up. I was in the middle of cooking a very important dish when a couple of coachloads of German holidaymakers marched in demanding choucroute, and so my chicken in beer had to be put to one side. I'll explain what I've done up to now. First, I fried chicken pieces in butter, flamed them with gin, added shallots and mushrooms, covered them with beer, pinch of salt and pepper and parsley, and simmered them for about an hour. Now's the time to finish the dish off. Although the mice have been at my chicken during my absence, and some of these chaps behind me have been eating little bits of it, I would, in fact, like to continue with the cooking demonstration, if that's all right with the rest of Germany and this part of France. Right, so what we do, we lift out these portions of chicken into here and finish off the sauce by adding a little fresh cream, pull it back from the heat so it doesn't all curdle. Stay there. And then we enrich it with a knob of butter, as before, put it back onto the heat. Like that. I shall ask Mark to taste this in a minute to see if he thinks it's any good or not. Melt the butter into that. Check for seasoning. I think it needs another grind of pepper. Like that. I then think I can simply pour that over there, bubble it up, sprinkle a little parsley on, and that is coq à la bière, à ma façon, ici, à la Maison des Têtes, in Alsace. Okay? It's terribly dexterous to be able to carve a tomato, a mushroom or whatever it is like that, but it does nothing for the flavour. Why can't they leave things alone? And another thing, they didn't even ask me if I wanted these little tombstones put on top of my wonderful-looking dish, which I cooked on my own. It looks silly like that. And now, of course, for the terrible moment of truth, as usual, the rules of this game are the chef will be invited to taste it. If he says something nice about it, he stays in the film. If he criticises it, he gets cut. Quite straightforward. He doesn't actually know I've said that. Bon, tu veux le goûter un peu pour voir?
Ok, ok.
Bon, mais dis-moi franchement.
Ah, mais je vais te dire franchement, ça va. It's very nice, Floyd. Perfect cooking. Mushroom, the sauce is alright, but if you keep a little bit bare and you put it on the end, let's bring a little, you know, something.
Just brings the flavour
much better.
much better.
You see, we do it here and in other place, but it's very good. Very good.
Good.
That's
So what he's really saying there, in precise terms, although the sauce is made from beer, I should have saved a little bit of beer, fresh beer, to add at the last minute, just to bring back the flavour of the beer. Otherwise, it was quite well cooked, you heard. I mean, you can speak English as well as I can. All these chefs are smiling, they're drinking champagne. Everybody's been very happy. If he's such a nice bloke, then why is this in the kitchen, I would like to know? He says it's just for pointing at the orders. But I mean, you see chaps around here with bandages and things like that. This has been used quite a lot. What exactly is this for?
That's. I can't tell you in French, in English, but you know, when somebody's doing something wrong, it becomes a little bit. Why that is broken on two places, and we have repaired it. You see?
Est-ce qu'il est si cruel et monstrueux comme ça, des fois?
Souvent.
Souvent.
On le service souvent.
What I've always wanted to do is take a lesson from a master chef and have a go at my producer. Where is he?